Uh, yeah, what are you gonna get? Okay, get me the same thing, except make it a meatball sub and make it from a different deli. Yeah, thank you. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did it beep ba 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 ba. It's Wednesday. I'm in love. Hi, my name is Jimmy, and I'm not wearing pants. I went to the comic book store today. You want to see what I got? Sure you do. Picks of the week. What? Hi there. All right, first up, we have Superman Smashes the Klan, number 3. Three. This is written by Gene Luen Yang, who has written a ton of stuff, but I haven't read a lot of it because most of it was for the DC Comics group, which is not my favorite. I like it. It's fun. He did, though, write New Superman, which was a book that DC put out. I want to say it was after Rebirth. Their most recent reboot of everything. Unless Dark Knights is, I don't know. DC seems to reboot everything every other year. Which, I mean, Marvel kind of does, too. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust. I meant the cameraman is adjusting. It doesn't matter. There was a book that DC put out. I want to say it was like from 2016 into 2017. It didn't last very long. It was called New Superman. And then eventually it became New Superman in the League of 10 or something like that. It was essentially, it took place in China. And it was the Chinese Superman and Chinese Batman and Chinese Wonder Woman. And it was really good. Because the Chinese Superman was kind of a dick. He was like a young kid who just kind of got these powers. And he kind of, they went to his head. So it's, you know, he's trying to learn to be Superman. It wasn't like he was just raised in Smallville. But it was a lot of fun. And the art is by a creative team called Gurihiru, which I'm probably mispronouncing. It's 2 Japanese women, and they work, their names are, and I'm definitely going to mispronounce these, Chifuyu Sasaki and Naoko Kawano. And I know their work just from seeing it around. They've mostly drawn for Marvel, but it's mostly been younger readers' books, a lot of Power Pack books and stuff, which I like, but they're not top of my list to read. But the art's incredible. And the story is obviously very relevant. It takes place in the 50s, I want to say, and follows a Chinese family, or a Chinese American family that moves to Metropolis and is almost immediately being harassed by the Ku Klux Klan. So Superman's not going to sit still for any of that sort of thing. I find it funny. I haven't seen a whole lot of blowback on this because in one of my rare, very smart moves, I avoid comic book discussion on the internet. This thing aside. I don't go to chat rooms, though. I don't read comments, most certainly not. I don't even follow that many creators because I would be tempted to look at their replies and that would drive me nuts. But I do remember DC did a tweet, I want to say it was a year ago, maybe 2. It was certainly within this presidential administration. Tweeted a picture of, a drawing of Superman. I think it was like his anniversary or whatever, the anniversary of Action #1. And there was a pretty clearly, worded message of like, hey, this is Superman and he fights for all, not just white guys. It was more subtle than that, but it was still very clear that DC Comics was like, no, he's a good guy. And yeah, there was some blowback because I don't want to get Comicsgate to come down on me. I don't want to say it because then they'll hear me. It's like Freddy Krueger. Can't go to sleep. So Comicsgate, which is essentially, that's shorthand for assholes that collect comic books. They kind of went after her, like, keep your politics out of my comic books. And that was what I'm driving at. The notion of keeping politics out of comic books. I'm not a very politically motivated dude. I consider myself to be fairly liberal, but I don't do anything about it. All I try to do really is not use my white privilege as much as I can. And that's nothing. But the idea of keeping politics out of comic books is ridiculous, especially Superman. Superman is probably one of the most politically motivated comic book creations ever, created by 2 Jews in Cleveland to fight Hitler, basically. And if that's not politicized, I don't know what is. Thank you. This has been Crossfire. Sorry. All right, we're going to go to Morton Kondracki now. Hi. There's a lot of stuff down here that you can't see that I'm barely standing in. After that, what else I got today at the comical bookstore is Bang #1. This is a book written by Matt Kindt and drawn by Wilfredo Torres, put out by the great Dark Horse Comics publisher. I don't know if Matt Kindt has come up in the course of this little thing that I'm doing here. Although we're, well into February by now, I'm probably going to be repeating myself consistently throughout. Try as I might. Matt Kindt is a great writer. Matt Kindt and Jeff Lemire are very much contemporaries. And I know I've mentioned Lemire. And they both have that same career track that a lot of guys have these days, where they were indie darlings and then they got jobs with the big two and became superhero darlings, which is a tradition going back to Grant Morrison, at the very least. I mean, I know, like, when Grant Morrison did New X-Men, to me, that was the first time that was a real big crossover of an indier guy writing a more mainstream book. It's not the first time it's happened, God knows, but it was just the first time where I was like, I went to go meet Grant Morrison at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con in 2002, and I had been kind of out of the game for a little while, and I didn't realize Grant Morrison was writing X-Men at that time. So I got in line to have him sign The Invisibles #1 and The Filth #1, which are kind of companion books that he did for Vertigo. And there was all these dorks in line, like all these teenage boys at the time. I think I was like 24 or something like that, 26. And there was all these teenage boys, and they were all with their X books, and I was like, well, that can't be the right line. Because usually when I met Grant Morrison before, I stood in line. I was the teenager with the zits and the and the Marvel Comics t-shirt, and his audience at that, especially in the early 90s, was very much, they all dressed in black and shopped at Hot Topic pretty exclusively. Boy, am I getting off on a thing. My point here is that Matt Kindt and Jeff Lemire kind of started this particular wave of indie guys breaking into the big two. Like, I think Marvel and DC saw what these guys were doing for them and went, how many more of these guys are out there writing indie books that we could bring in and pay not very much and then keep all their creations? And so that was how Matt Rosenberg and, who I'm going to be talking about in a minute, and Donnie Cates and Jason Latour, sort of. And, I mean, Jason Aaron was kind of already... Jason Aaron kind of went straight to the mainstream stuff, though. Anyway. This is all to say that Matt Kindt has a pretty wide breadth of work out there. So he has books like Super Spy, which I can't recommend enough. It's probably my favorite book that he's done. That's why I'm very excited for this one, because he kind of cut his teeth on spy stories, and he does very Wes Anderson-y spy stories. And I don't mean that to be a criticism. Like, they're very simple, and they make me anyway feel kind of nostalgic for like Harriet the Spy and stuff like that, the Hardy Boys and stuff like that. But it's really well done, and he's an incredible artist on top of that. He did this cover, which is the main reason I went with this cover instead of the other one. But Wilfredo Torres draws this one. So, so Matt Kindt, you should read Super Spy, you should read Mind Management, and then, because he drew those. He wrote Ether, which is also from Dark Horse. He did not draw that, but it was drawn by an artist whose name I can't remember, but who I really enjoy his work. He's a Spanish guy, I know that much. But now, also, Matt Kindt writes a lot for Valiant Comics. He's like become Valiant's Brian Bendis, sort of. And Wilfredo Torres, I kind of forgotten about. This, I think Bang will be the book that makes me go, oh, right, Wilfredo Torres. Because I knew the name, but I had to look him up. Now I won't have to, I don't think. But I knew Wilfredo Torres most recently because he drew Black Hammer, The Quantum Age for Jeff Lemire, which was the Black Hammer version of the Legion of Superheroes. And he drew Captain Kidd, which is for Aftershock. I think it was Aftershock. A few years back, which was a book that Mark Waid wrote, which I had forgotten about entirely. I mean, it was good, but it was kind of forgettable. And then he also drew Jupiter's Circle, which I'd forgotten. Jupiter's Circle was a spin-off of a Mark Millar book. What was the main title? Jupiter's Legacy. But that book was plagued with delays because it was drawn by Frank Quitely, and Frank Quitely will get you the pages when he's good and ready. And he's the only artist that if I were his editor, I'd be like, yes, take all the time you need because you are artistically superior to most. Wasn't talking about Frank Whiteley. I was talking about Wilfredo Torres. So Wilfredo Torres kind of was brought in to draw the Jupiter Circle book, which was meant to sort of be, to hold us over until the Jupiter's Legacy could finish, which is I recommend those. And they must have gone with Wilfredo Torres here because he kind of has a similar vibe to Frank Whiteley, and I think that's true. So this is fun. It's Matt Kint and a guy who kind of draws like Frank Whiteley. It's not like he's ever going to see this. And finally, this is, good Lord, am I at 10 minutes already? The hell with it. It's Wolverine #1 with a die cut cover. Let me just say, and then I'll add, huh? And finally, I'm crapping you negative. I legitimately felt like I was 14 years old again when I saw this in my bag. This is this die cut cover. If you're unfamiliar with the die cut cover, then you clearly did not collect comic books in the early 90s, so you can't really tell with the bag on. But the cover has actually got Wolverine went and scratched his way through this cover. They did this for Wolverine #50, which was a huge event back in the early 90s, even though the book was not great. And it was fine. That era of Wolverine is not my favorite. Let's not talk about it. So I don't know anything about this book aside from that. Because I refuse to Google anything. I think Benjamin Percy of Green Arrow and other novels is writing it. I don't want to know anything until I read it. You'll hear about it next week. But the main thing I'm actually really very excited about, if I haven't made that clear yet, it's not just because it's Wolverine. Wolverine has always been my favorite superhero and probably always will be. But this is particularly exciting for me in that Wolverine, like Logan, the one that I know, the 616 Wolverine, he died back in 2014. They killed him off. And then they brought him back, officially brought him back like at the end of 2017 or like mid 2017. And then he kind of slowly, they started working him back in. And then he was on the X-Men when Matthew Rosenberg was writing it. But now this is his first, this is his first solo title since 2014. So I am super jazzed for that. 6 years I've waited. And I'm not like I was complaining either, because Laura Kinney, otherwise usually known as X-23, she became Wolverine for a while. She was all new Wolverine, they called her. Totally into that. Who else was? And then they had Old Man Logan, which is what it sounds like. It was a Wolverine from a dystopian future where he's all old, but he's still pretty badass. Great stuff. But this is my Wolverine back in his own comical book. And I think I'm closest to filling in Wolverine, like the full run of it, than I am to any other major Marvel title. So very exciting. Sorry, it was so exciting I had to go out of frame. All right, that was picks of the week. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. And now picks of last week. Oh, did you know that was the same board? Oh, little peek behind the curtain. All right, I'll try not to get through this because, oh boy, it's already 13 and a half. Black Panther and the Agents of Wakanda, #6. This was a lot of fun. Jim Zub continues to write books that I enjoy, even though I'm still on the fence a little bit. He wrote another book that came out this week. Oh, he is taking over Conan the Barbarian from Jason Aaron. And, because it's going to be, Jason Aaron's a tough act to follow, period, especially with Conan, because he loves Conan. But Jim Zub's been good. I did not like his Champions. That's all I can really say. Oh, and this issue, and I don't know if they're coming back for good, features the Live Wires. The Live Wires, I've been talking about this a lot too, where they're bringing back stuff from my childhood, like 2099 and Atlantis Attacks and stuff like that. Live Wires is from 2005. So I think they're trying to maybe, horn in on that racket. Or maybe not. I think it's also could just be they're like, hey, what characters have we not used? So the Live Wires were created by Adam Warren and I wrote it down. Adam Warren and Rick Mays. Adam Warren is probably most well known for writing Dirty Pair, which is kind of a softcore manga book adapted for an American audience. And Rick Mays drew Nomad, which I read as a kid, and a handful of other Marvel books, but from what I could tell, he hasn't worked in comics much since Live Wires, which is 2005, like I said. So I think they were just like, oh, we haven't used these characters for a while. And in fact, when I was reading it, it made me a little, because I didn't even read the original Live Wires. I started to read it on the Marvel Unlimited app, which I usually cannot recommend enough, but for whatever reason, it's not letting me read issue 3. And I can't finish the series, obviously, without reading issue 3. So that's a bummer. What? I had another point, and I completely forgot what it was. Did I make a note of it? Oh, yeah, that's right. In what year was that? That would have been like 2013 or 2014. Marvel did a book called Avengers AI, which was a team of Avengers that were all androids, led by the Vision and featuring Victor from the Runaways and a Doombot who just became Doombot and other robotic characters. And it was a lot of fun. So I think that's what Live Wires was trying to get to and couldn't quite do it. And then Avengers AI, which featured the art of Jose Lima Araujo, who's incredible. It's probably my favorite working artist right now. That's where I discovered him. What does one have to do with the other? Hawkeye Free Fall was number 3. This was another very fun book. Matt Rosenberg, who I've mentioned several times, has got a real great ear for dialogue, which you will see if you read some of his indie stuff, including 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank and We Can Never Go Home, which are 2 very punk rock comic books. I don't recall if there are superpowers, etc. involved, but there's definitely crime and maybe sex and definitely violence. So I highly recommend that. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. This story so far has been Hawkeye versus Ronin, which is another one of his identities, versus the Hood, who was a villain created by Brian K. Vaughan of Y the Last Man and Ex Machina. And who I never read that much of his stuff. I mean, that much of the Hood. You know, they were like, Vaughn was really pushing him to be a major, like he took over as the kingpin of crime in New York City from the Kingpin. But I don't know. He's not my kind of kingpin. Hey, welcome to me complaining about things. Jeez. Okay, 20 minutes. All right. This is the book that I'm super stoked that I bought. Spirits of Ghost Rider, Mother of Demons, number 1. This is Lilith. So this was, like last week I was trying to figure out why they were doing this one shot. And I think the only thing I could really figure was like, Ed Brisson was like, you got to let me do another, there's too much to this story. Because Ghost Rider has been Robbie Reyes for the last 7 years, and he's an Avenger now, and it's fine. I don't much care for, like, I really gave that book a go, and I don't like it. I think it's because he drives a car instead of a motorcycle. This is not the same. But now Johnny Blaze, the original Ghost Rider, is back in the Marvel Universe, and he is the king of hell currently, deposed Mephisto, who tried to take over the Earth via Las Vegas, and is now imprisoned in Las Vegas. Very fitting. And who else? Oh, Danny Ketch, who was the Ghost Rider of the 90s, the one that I was most familiar with. He's back too, but now he's become possessed by the spirit of corruption, which is super, super badass. And they're bringing back Hearts of Darkness, which was one shot. It was a premiere one shot because it was like square bound. It was like a fancier one shot comic book that came out in the early 90s. Featuring the Wolverine, the Punisher, and the Ghost Rider. And yeah, my 12-year-old self did not know what an orgasm was yet then, but then when he had one later was like, oh, this is like when Hearts of Darkness came out. Oh, I wish I were kidding. So they're going to do that for the next issue of Ghost Rider. Okay. No, I'm very excited. Why shouldn't I be? I'm trying to be more vulnerable. So, speaking of which, I gotta go pick up my bulletproof vest from the dry cleaners. But you've been watching Wednesday I'm in Love, and I'm not going to do one next week because this is 20 minutes. No, I'm kidding. I will. All right. I'll see you guys next week, though. Yeah, okay. 2, 3, 4. Ba-da-ba-ba-beep-ba-ba. Ba-da-beep-beep. Ba-da-ba-ba.